Welcome to Mantras for Peace, and this is dear Jori Manske. Hi, welcome, Jori.
Welcome. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a long time since we've seen each other, and it's just a wonderful opportunity to reconnect. Thank you.
You're so welcome, and I really am so honored to have you share your voice with this wisdom gathering project. Just a little bit of background on Jori. I attended an NVC workshop with her and her partner. Gosh, I think it might have been almost 15 years ago on the island of Kauai. And Jori is a certified NVC trainer and has been doing trainings and workshops and mediation sessions and basically fully involved with peacemaking through language for how long?
Well, I met Marshall Rosenberg in the year 2000.
Okay.
And we were already mediators before that and involved. I actually met my husband in a spiritual training center, and it's almost embarrassing to tell you what year that was because I'm really so old at this point, but we've been together 40 years plus, actually more than 40 years now.
Wow. So you undoubtedly have just more wisdom to share than can get crammed into a short conversation, but we're really so delighted to have you speak. NVC is so fundamental for me at this point, but I know that a lot of people around the world, and definitely a lot of the listeners and viewers of this wisdom gathering are maybe not as dialed in to the method as they could be. So I was just wondering if you would talk about what is empathy in nonviolent communication?
Yeah. I wanted to just say a little bit about nonviolent communication and its purpose.
Yeah.
But I think will answer that too, which is to create a quality of connection that inspires compassionate giving and receiving. And I love that you asked about empathy, because for me, that is such a key piece of this. And it was actually one of the more transforming pieces. And we can focus on ourselves with empathy, or we can focus on another person with empathy. And empathy, the simple definition of empathy is a respectful understanding of another person's experience, or a respectful understanding of your own experience. Yeah. And it sounds quite simple. And yet the programming we have about right, wrong, should, have to, all of that, what's okay, what's not okay, and all of the meaning we put to things gets in the way of that. But empathy, I liken empathy to when it's with somebody else. There was a poem, and I didn't come prepared with the name of this poem, but it Footprints in the Sand. That's the name of it, actually, where one of the images there is of somebody who's walking, and another person is walking in their step, like you're walking on the beach, and you're just step by step by step. It's just being with someone beyond the right or wrong, or having to inform them of anything, or correct them, and all of it. It's just, oh, I'm holding you as a human being with care. And there are ways of expressing it, and that ways of watching ourselves that tell us whether we're being corrective or whether this is about me rather than about you. And when for me, it's just about being with you. And if something comes up for me, I have a choice to express. That's not empathy. Then it would become honesty. Or I can put it on the shelf. I'll get back to you. I need a little empathy myself. But just to be with someone, or turn it around and just walk with myself like I would with a precious child in my life. To hold myself that way. So that's what empathy, a short picture of it.
A couple questions arise, or curiosities arise for me around that. One,
I could see that in you, which was my empathy.
Yeah.
By the way. Yeah, go ahead.
On one hand, I can hear and sense like a quality of that. The words you used were compassionate giving and receiving. Like I can hear and sense that that you embody that in your relationships and your partnership. Like I like that's my guess is that that's a default mode for you at this point.
Well practiced, yes.
Well practiced, but pretty that neural network is pretty well greased. Yeah, but I also know that in your professional life, you teach workshops and you do mediation and you handle facilitation for people who are in a very different paradigm of relating to themselves and to one another. And so I feel like I want to ask you like the golden question. How do you go from there to here? Like, is there, I know this is hard because this is like an interview. Really, this is the summation of your life's work, but is there one nugget that somebody listening to this can immediately put into place that would help them get from a paradigm of discord to a paradigm of harmony? Yeah. What would that be from you?
Oh, wow. In my experience, it's often a huge process of development because we've had so many decades of living in this right-wrong paradigm. And
can you talk about that a little bit? What is the right-wrong paradigm?
This idea that you have to, that even that there's, if you do something that I don't like, you are fill in the blank with, a bad person or whatever. All these judgments that we've had about each other, and those are what get in the way.
And ourselves.
Beg your pardon?
And ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Self-empathy is a key to having an easier life, if you will, right? When we can actually see ourselves not as the enemy. And so as far as I can tell, it's a path of reprogramming our brains. And we all have empathy. I say all, because even in the example I'm about to give, I realize not necessarily, but a mother who loves their child. So I can at least categorize it, because there are children who come into the world to people who don't really want them, which is just heartbreaking. So my empathy for even that is, oh, you so long to know that you matter and that you are loved just like everybody else. Yeah. So that would be the empathy for that. But in terms of the development of it, is for us first and foremost to put that oxygen mask on ourselves, to be able to have that compassion with ourselves, to realize that in every given moment, we're doing the best we know how to get our basic needs. And when I say basic, it's, our universal needs that live inside of us, those internal values that we all share. So it's really, for me, in order for me to really have empathy for you, I need to be able to connect to humanity. I say that it starts with myself. It's really interesting because in some cultures, and I don't live in these cultures, but I'll make an example of, say, Japanese, where that I've worked with. It's my experience that they're great at empathy for other people, but not so great with empathy for themselves. In our culture, we go, so often we'll start with the place, if I were in Japan, I would be pointing out empathy there for other people. But in the West, first and foremost, we need to really look at ourselves and rehumanize ourselves and find that place that knows that we're always doing the best we know how. If we knew something better, if we would do it differently, that we're a product of the programming that we've had. So we start with that, put the oxygen mask on ourselves and start to look at, I don't have a needs wheel available to put up here in the video, but I can send you one, just to get an idea of some of the needs that we share. I mean, things like security, safety, just at the core, connection with people, and learning, just words like these that point to our shared humanity, and to realize that in every given moment, we're doing the best we can to meet those needs. Even if I turn around and call someone a jerk, underneath that, I'm not saying I that's the behavior I would like to have, but with self-compassion, if I bring it back, I can actually get out of the rabbit hole, down a rabbit hole when I say you're just a jerk. Get out of the rabbit hole first and foremost by going, wow, hey, Jori, are you really feeling frustrated, maybe even angry? Because what you're really needing right now is to be seen and heard and understood, to have some sense that there's understanding in the world for you. That's how I would turn it around first and foremost for myself. So as we forgive ourselves our programming and reactive patterns and can connect to the good needs underneath, if I can connect to, oh, you really want to care for yourself, then that's the empathy. In actuality, from a place of empathy, ideas will start to pop up of how I could take care of myself in this moment. So that's the gift, too, of empathy, as I connect to, I have the same universal needs as anybody else. I'm a human being doing the best I know how. I'm not really very fond of the strategy I just used. I don't see that that's really building the quality of connection to myself or anyone else. This is what's important.
So what I heard you saying, if I were to sort of encapsulate that, to get from there to here, we have to the first thing, or the golden nugget, is to get out of the right and wrong territory, like get out of judging or labeling the situation or our response to the situation, and get tuned in to what is alive in us, in our humanity.
Yeah.
And once we do that, the creative world of possible strategies to meet those needs starts to naturally arise.
Yeah, and we do need to build a vocabulary of these universal needs.
Yeah. Yeah.
We really do need to be able to see our shared humanity and to understand that, we're doing the best we can to meet needs.
Yeah. Well, when you go, I guess when you go into a situation where you're like a tense situation where you're called to facilitate, and your role is peacemaking, your first attention is to getting right to what's alive.
Yeah. My first attention, actually, if it's a difficult kind of situation, my first attention is on myself.
Yes.
With some self-empathy and clarity about my intention. Why am I even walking into this?
Yeah. Do I really want to do this?
What needs am I hoping to meet by this?
Yeah.
Well, maybe contribution and to peace, and I hope it would be more of a feeling that I hope I can meet these needs.
Inspiration, learning.
Because I really value something. I really value a sense of peace and collaboration, or whatever is coming up around that. So the first thing, again, I put the oxygen mask on myself. I make sure I'm really grounded. I know I'm walking in. If I know I'm walking, that's the tricky when you don't know. You don't quite get this preparation, but professionally I do. I'm walking into a situation and where people are in pain, so I start to even empathize with them before I even open my mouth. There's pain there, just like me. They have pain, just like everybody else. They have pain. Something really matters to them, and I open up I open myself up to really receive, and that receiving has a bit of a filter, so that any of the right-wrong game goes. I let it, and I'm looking for the deeper values that are under what's going on.
That feels doable to me. It feels well. I know it's not always easy, because if you have your own things going on and your own needs which are calling for attention, or the situation is particularly tense, or you have investment in the outcome, it can be more difficult. But I'm thinking about, for this community, which is dedicated to peacemaking and dedicated to, putting our voice in service to peace. I think that feels like a really usable, doable piece of a strategy, an action that we can do to hold attention on.
Yeah, and it's what I love that's the intention of this group, and how important it is to remind ourselves of our intention before we walk in the door. That makes so much difference. Much difference.
Yeah.
And why are you even confronting these people? Why are you even connecting rather than even confronting? Why are you
Yeah.
connecting with these people? You may have an outcome. I want them to stop uh, catching dogs and cats and putting them in boxes, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
the the purpose is there, to get beyond the purpose, to ask ourselves, and if they stop doing that, what would be the deeper meaning of that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the dogs or the cats in the boxes will be able to have some freedom. Okay, so it's really about freedom. Is it really about freedom? If they had freedom, is there something else deeper than that? And I could dig and dig it. I mean, what just came up for me, it's about so valuing care and life and a certain quality of integrity with life. Just those are the kinds of things and ways that we can build that skill, and that's the ways that that's what I would do before I would enter a difficult conversation.
Mm.
Really put that,
Mm.
as I said earlier, oxygen mask on ourselves before assisting others.
Yeah.
We know, because then we can turn our attention to them. And when they say something like, who cares about the dogs? Or cats? Yeah, so you're not really connected to their life. Something else is going on for you.
It's about they're pooping on my lawn. Right?
Yeah. So what you're really wanting is some choice, and maybe to have
order.
Yeah, exactly, order. So even without NVC, people will say things like this, and the measure of whether it's a need really is that it's a value that we all share, as opposed to an action or a should.
Yeah.
A strategy or a should. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to be able to come home without these dogs yipping and napping at my, nipping at my ankles, like safety.
Yeah. Some choice.
Exactly.
Really, you'd like some protection. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, there are no dogs, there are no cats, there are no boxes.
If you're dealing with, a mediation, which is how we started, the other person actually has, if we get to the universal level, they also have those needs.
Yeah.
In the same way, when I can connect to the needs that you have, even if I don't like your strategy, there's shared humanity that's visible here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, from my view, in my specialty with mantra and music from a sacred view, what you're talking about is skills. It's a listening skill. And there is a sense of ongoing, penetrating curiosity that just leads the way into our inner experience of what is really alive and what is really important. Mm-hmm. And, I might get there through the practice of mantra meditation or the yoga of sound. But I consider that nonviolent communication to be a yoga of sound, in a very real and very pragmatic sense. And I think it's fun to interact with someone whose practice is that primarily, and hear the same skills being demonstrated in just a slightly different way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty beautiful.
It's so cool.
You could probably see behind me. Let's see.
Your giraffes?
My
Yes.
giraffes. Two
Yeah.
giraffes there. And
Yeah.
I want to point that out because I find this incredibly helpful for the consciousness to realize, giraffes. Giraffe was chosen as the symbol for nonviolent communication.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the characteristics that really point to nonviolent communication and empathy, the giraffe is the tallest animal in the kingdom and has such a perspective.
Mm.
Yeah, really a huge perspective. And in fact, the other animals wait until the giraffes come to the water hole. Because they have this sense of safety. And in fact, they are one of the strongest animals. If a lion comes to try and attack a giraffe, they have these huge hoofs. All they do is they kick it away. If a lion came toward any of us or any of those little creatures, we'd be running away for our lives. But the giraffe, it's so strong and so tall with these huge hips. They just kick the lion away. I've seen videos of it. It's really amazing. And they don't try and hurt the lion. If the lion comes again, they'll kick it again. But they never chase it. They're not trying to hurt the lion. They're in full protective mode. That's empathy for shared humanity. Or maybe humanity is a shared life. Yeah, they're not human. That shared, I translate it for humans as shared humanity. But there's a respectful relationship with life and an intention to protect life.
Yeah.
And so that it's to have this level of protection of our shared humanity, to be committed to protecting all beings, and to really come from the values that we share.
I think one of the things that always really nourishes me when I tune into the language of life and the way that's articulated through Marshall's work and through the next successive generations of teachers and facilitators of MBC is this like a shaping of language around the experience of life that we want to have. And I know there's a lot of care given to how we use words in self-talk and how we use words in external communications as well. And I just, I guess I just wanted to mark that because, even the words that you said, what is nonviolent communication? A quality of connection that inspires compassionate giving and receiving. I mean, for me, that's like a bell that rings a possibility for how we could live life together. And my questions, like my question, my effort, as a person and also as a teacher is like, well, okay, how do we get from where we are to there? We need to see that, hear that, saturate in that vibration of where we want to go, and then look at where we are and go, okay, step one.
Yeah.
One of the pieces that really I just have to thank you so much for articulating your work around the vortex, what you call the vortex of submission. And I'd like to, if you're willing to spend a couple minutes talking about that, because it totally changed my life. And, so I don't want to talk about it. I want to hear you talk about it. So would you be willing to just intro what that work is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the pain and suffering that we have in the world is because we say yes to things that aren't a real yes.
Mm.
We really are not in integrity with ourselves. We live from a place of have to and should. And when we do that, um, we we give not from the heart, but from someplace else. We're likely to have these expectations. Okay, I caved. I went and got you what you wanted today, and then the next day you want something, and you ask, would you stop at the store on the way home, or whatever? Or would you run out and get something? And they say no. So we have caved, and we have built an expectation, or maybe they say yes, but if they say no, we fall into that that judgment. They should, that now I feel something and it's their fault. There's this right wrong game that we go to, and if that continues, and we don't express our expectation and our capacity to see that that person too has choice, which is hard if we haven't acknowledged that we actually had choice, we are likely to go into, you disappointed me, now I'm a victim.
Mm-hmm.
And if that pattern continues, it's going to get over and over worse, to the point where it'll build some resentment. Eventually we'll explode and we'll do something like yell or go on. And then often what happens after we do that is we turn our attention toward ourselves with guilt, shame, all of this. And then, and we beat ourselves up in the same way when we were resentful for that toward them. We were either beating them up or we were wanting to. And but we turn it on ourselves, and then we move into guilt and shame. And I was 5 feet tall, and now I'm about 2 inches tall in terms of I was like, oh, because I've done something now that I regret, and so now obviously I'm not very worthy. So if you ask me to do something again, now you deserve it. But you got to get into that place of, but what about me? You're just not balanced. Go round and round and round until eventually you'll kill a relationship. You just, why would I be with that jerk? You go through that perceptual reorientation that, he was never, or she was never a nice person, and I don't know why I even got friends with them or married them or whatever in my life. And, that perceptual reorientation and that wall that goes up. And the reality is that we are doing all of that to ourselves. I mean, not that someone else doesn't have a part in it, but I've just named our parts in it. Yeah.
And it all, it all comes back to that point where I make a decision that someone else's needs are more important than mine.
Right.
And there's so that there's a hierarchy there,
Right.
and therefore I submit to the guru, or I submit to the parental, I submit to the authority figure, or I submit to my partner who I adore and value and want to place them
Right.
above me somehow. And I don't know about you, but certainly as a woman, there's a whole hell of a lot of conditioning in there for how I'm supposed to relate to men in this world. And just for one example, and I, there, so that point that you spoke about of, inspiring a quality of connection that inspires giving and receiving.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hear this sort of reciprocal energy exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if reciprocity is possible on a hierarchical plane.
As soon as we're talking reciprocity, we're trying to make balance, and it's so like, yeah.
For me, the energy of that goes on a horizontal plane, like looping, whereas power balance goes up and down. So, I don't know. That's for me the word.
I want to give you the most important skill.
Please.
Yes. Learning how to say no in a way that maintains connection.
Oh, couldn't we do that, please?
Yes. When there's so much trauma in us about all of this. I mean, obviously we forget and all of that, but to be able to say, to one, acknowledge with empathy, I get that you really want this, maybe even attach to why they want it. And then to be able to turn that toward ourselves and say, I would really like to see you have that. And as I look inside and I consider not only inside, maybe even, I'm in the middle of making dinner or whatever, when I look at the bigger picture for myself, I realized this really doesn't work for me. And so I'm wondering, is there someone else that you can ask, or would it work for you if we put that aside and we revisited it an hour? Come up with something.
Start the negotiations.
Yeah, something that, a step they could take. If it's someone you live with, can we talk about it later? If it's someone who wants to work with you, for example, and you're all booked up, you say, I'd really love to see you have this support, and I see I really don't have it to give, but here's a telephone number of another friend, or something that acknowledges, or supports them in refocusing to the place where they see that I'm not the only strategy for them, so that we're not going bump like this. So that's really ultimately the key skill, but it's hard to really access that until we also get clear of these, at least in our experience, we get clear on what our own pattern in it.
Yeah. Well, you can't develop the skills until you have the awareness. If you're going along unconsciously submitting all the time, you have to first learn how to listen in and develop the skill, and then have the vocal alignment. We work with this in mantra practice all the time, because a mantra, is one of those areas in life where you can, it's a practice that you can do to build the connection between the heart and the mind and the throat and what comes out of your mouth. You know, like the sound should be one unbroken flow. And that is often not how we use our voices. We often say what we don't mean.
Right.
Right.
And we're reactive.
Yeah. And we're the heart and the mind and the throat, the words and the actions are usually all over the place for a lot of us. So,
and really, yeah. I kind of zoned out as you said all of that, because it took me back to being 21 years old and getting my first mantra. I just sort of spaced out as you said that.
Right.
You didn't know.
That's a good space out, I hope, right? It was a happy one.
Yes. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what this is about. I mean, this is mantras for peace, but that the voice. So what I hear you saying with learning how to say no, the skill of saying no and maintaining connection. God, that's just that's a radical concept for so many of us who have our identity tied into being the good girl or the good boy, or, you know, only saying yes because yes is nice, is the right thing to do.
Be a nice dead person.
Yeah,
because you're not showing up. And I also want to acknowledge the actual word no is triggering for most people. We need to find a way to say that without it feeling like a slap in the face. God, I really want you to have what you want. You know, something. That's where the empathy can come in. Yeah. So you really want some support here. Or, if you're a mom and they want a cookie while you're making dinner, you really want something to eat, that you really love cookies, you know, something, some acknowledgement first.
Yeah, where my mind went with that was like, because the programming around no, I don't know, like often no is associating with scolding for having done something wrong when you're a little kid. So in your experience of, being around families and parents and children that are embodying empathy, how can you paint us a picture of what that looks like? What is that conversation when the kid's reaching for the cookie jar while the mother has got her back turned, and instead of saying no, what does she say?
I mean, there's a moment when you might say no if they're running into the street,
right? Or if the cookie jar is about to break on their head.
Yeah, in that situation, it's not like if you don't stop now, someone's going to die. It's just an acknowledgement. This is where the empathy comes from. Acknowledge, acknowledge, acknowledge. That's the start. You just say, you really would love to have a cookie right now.
Stating the obvious while the hand is reaching for the jar.
Acknowledge it. And what that does inside of me when I acknowledge it is it leans me toward my compassion and empathy for the child. So it's not just for the child that I'm doing that. I'm not trying to manipulate them. But and when we hear empathy like that, when they say, you really want a cookie, or, you're really hungry, or something like that, there's a quality of turning toward oneself. Maybe the child doesn't do it right away, but empathy enables us it supports the other person in turning toward themselves to look at their positive intention. That's another way
Mm,
of saying needs, as we say, in nonviolent
mm,
communication, the positive intention. Um, and so it's just, yeah, the kid will go, wow, yeah, and the cookie, you know, and you're standing now between the kid and the cookie, so, or whatever. Um, and so, yeah, so it's really sad to really stay with them until they can hear you.
mm,
You know, it's like, why waste your breath otherwise? They can't hear you. They're now crying and yelling and all of that. Oh, I really wish that was so. And and just stay with them as best you can. I know if there's stuff on the stove, you might be multitasking. It'll take some skill, but in other situations, it may not be as that difficult because you're kind of hanging out. And
mm-hmm.
and just go, yeah, you really would like that cookie. Yeah, that would be really nice. Yeah. And what you start to notice often, I notice it when I speak to myself this way, and when I speak to other people, they can start out, yeah, and each time I say, yeah, they don't like this, yeah, and this is really upsetting you, yeah, is a de-escalation.
It
With,
softens.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
little by little, their attention from "you're the bad guy" starts to
Yeah.
turn into, "oh yeah, this is what's going on for me."
Wow. I love that. So the attention turns from you're the bad guy to this is what's going
I
on for
want the
me.
cookie. I just wanted a
So,
cookie. I'm hungry. You know.
right. So that's also how to hear someone else's no and stay connected to
Yeah,
what's alive in me.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so that's the first thing I really
Yeah.
want to make sure, if I'm saying no, that I'm supporting that person and already being connected to what's important to them,
Mm,
so that we can find something
yeah.
that could work for both of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I think for me that's just such an incredible skill set for living out the kind of harmonious relating that I would like to have in my world, and I would like everyone to have that. Um, so
Yeah, and I've seen parents who have embodied nonviolent communication, empathy, the ability to say honest things in a way that are connecting. And I've
yeah,
watched their kids grow up. It's pretty amazing.
whole different world. That
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
including my kids.
Yay! Well, lucky for all of us at any stage, our brains are plastic,
Yeah,
more plastic than we ever knew before. We are learning all the time. We can learn new things all the time. And
yeah.
we're
It reminds me of the movie Monty Python.
which part? It's been a while.
And it's sort of a joke in our family, so it came up for me. Yeah, when the guy, it's kind of a nasty image, but it's funny, and it's the whole thing's a joke. But they're saying, "Bring out your dead." They're bringing out the bodies because they're having something going on, and guy got put on the top of the pile. He says, "I'm not dead yet."
No, there's still hope. Like,
Yeah, I'm not dead yet.
hey, don't count me out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, on that note, we're we're not. Honestly, on that note, we are not dead yet,
Yes.
and
There's still
there.
plenty of opportunity for growth and
I
learning and making life more wonderful.
yeah.
And what I hear from you is your work is about making life more wonderful. And that's what I so
Yay.
appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your your tools. I hope people will check your work out. What is your, I mean, we're going to put your website and your links and everything in the show notes, but what would be the best way for people to come and experience you?
RadicalCompassion.com.
RadicalCompassion.com. I'm in. Sounds great.
We're working on another website maybe, but it hasn't been super updated, but you'll see lots of links, and we do most of our work is done on compassionate giving and receiving at this point. So there's a way to sign up for our newsletter, and I send something out every week, which I'll do right after our call, and just let people know what's happening this week. Sometimes just what we're doing, and sometimes what other people are doing as well, and have an opportunity to come and check things out. We do something on Mondays at 4:30 Hawaii time, which is just a wide open group, and some other things.
Nice.
Yeah. So on the right-hand side of the web page that opens up, you'll see a way to click it and join the mail list. And you'll always have a chance once you get on the mail list and get an email to be able to click it on the bottom and leave if you don't want to hang out.
Oh, I don't know who wouldn't want to hang out with you guys, but that's on them.
The people in England don't.
Okay, all right.
Timing just doesn't work.
Right. No, it's a little tough for the Europeans, but the Aussies and the Japanese people. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jori. I really, really appreciate you taking time to talk with us today.
All right. Bye-bye, sweetheart.
Thank you
for your work.
Yeah.